Hi everyone, it's Ren here. I welcome you to my channel. I welcome you to my room wearing the three colors that represents my nation's flag. As you can see on my t-shirt, although I guess technically white is not a color, but let's not get too nitpicky. I wanted to make a video on this question, can INFJs ask for help? It was a question that was suggested, as a potential area of discussion by Emma. So, hi Emma, thank you for your constant suggestions, messages of support, of friendship. I appreciate it very much. I wish I could respond more fully sometimes, but you know how life is. I do my best. But yeah, so Emma suggested this video in the first place, and I thought it was a good idea. The question, can INFJs ask for help? Meaning, is it okay? I hope this is what Emma meant. Is it okay to ask people for help when you feel not good, when you feel like you're dealing with severe issues, trauma, something that's really bothering you, sometimes something that's really painful and that you sort of you keep in yourself? Now the answer is obviously yes. Not only can INFJs ask for help, not only is it okay for them to ask for help, it is okay just as it is okay for anyone. But they really must ask for help when they feel like they need help, because when you ask for help, when you ask for people to support you, that can really help you get past a difficult period quicker, and it can do so for many different reasons. It's very important for the INFJ to know this because, at least as far as my experience has taught me, there is a tendency that we have to not ask for help. And I think the reason why we have this tendency is because, well, functionally speaking, it's probably because of FE or NI and FE together. Because you'll notice something. ENFJs, our cousins, extroverted cousins, ENFJs, are awful at asking for help as well. Maybe not awful, but it's not their favorite thing. Especially psychological support, you very rarely ever meet an ENFJ who's like, all right, so I'm dealing with this particular issue psychologically or mentally. What's your perspective? Can you, ENFJs will all be in favor of being the one that's telling you, that's helping you, that's telling you, okay, you need to do this, you need to do that. That's where they thrive. And to an extent, or to even a large extent, INFJs are the same. They're functionally very similar. Again, they will be a little bit more contemplative. They probably will be slightly better listeners. Now, the counterpart is that perhaps their advice will not be as hands-on, as pragmatic as the ENFJ's advice can be. And that's potentially, an advantage that ENFJs have. Nevertheless, ENFJs and INFJs have it in common that they are not good at asking for help, because FE processes, in a way, FE processes emotion by externalizing emotion, but in the way that is others directed rather than directed toward itself. So it doesn't actually love analyzing its own emotions. It's something that it is not very comfortable with. It loves analyzing other things, its insights, its perspectives, but its emotions maybe not so much. And obviously, one thing that happens when you ask for help is that you kind of become the object of support. And so a certain amount of emotional support and emotional attention is directed towards you. And this is something that we don't necessarily like, and maybe a primary sort of reaction would be to think that this is not what will make us feel better, because it's not our comfort zone emotionally, and yet it can be very helpful. Now, let's keep in mind that an INFJ is not like an ENFJ in that we are introverts, and I have to say it's perhaps a sad thing, but that's the way it seems to be to me, especially if I compare myself to my dad, who is an ENFJ. But extroverts in general, and that includes ENFJ, I think that in a way, psychologically and mentally, they tend to be a little bit sturdier. You know, like they're not as prone to self-questionings as introverts are, and INFJs are very prone to that. So if anything, INFJs need to make sure that they ask for help at least as much, if not more. And yet they will have this craving for independence that also comes from introversion, that will conflict with that to an extent. Well, you need to kind of make sure that you still do. And the other challenge is to ask who for help. You know, this is another big question, because it's all well and good to say, yeah, okay, if I feel like I need support, I should not consider that I'm not worthy of asking for support, or that the support would be detrimental to my recovery. That doesn't happen unless you ask a psychopath or someone who hates you for help. But I think if you're of a sound mind, you're not going to do that. So yeah, do not ask for help anyone who hates you to bits, or someone who's a psychopath. Ask someone who is, well, I mean, again, there are not that many people that you want to go ask for help. There can be many people, but not that many categories. Obviously, your family and your friends. And I would say that in your friends, try to ask, if you ask for help, try to ask your good friends, because if you ask an acquaintance, the issue is, it's not that the acquaintance is a bad person, it's just that they don't have as much of an investment in you, and as long a history of connection with you as a good friend would. Which means that they might be supportive, but in a more fitful, sporadic, and unreliable manner. They might disappear off the face of the earth, or consider that you're asking too much. And so you need to be careful with that, because if you were to go to that person for support, and that sometimes it's a mistake we make, we think that the people who can best support us in these difficult moments are people who are similarly intellectual, or at least similarly minded, people who have a similar perspective. So that's not always true. They're like us, but if these people are not particularly close to us, we don't have a long history of friendship with them, they might prove to be not as supportive, or more sporadically supportive than we initially thought. And this could hurt us. We might feel abandoned, because part of the reason why we don't necessarily ask for help is because we are afraid of rejection. You know, this is a fundamental fear of the INFJ. I'm becoming more and more convinced of it. There's a fear of rejection, which comes from a projection of the possibility of that rejection if we make a gesture toward asking for something. Because if you ask someone for something, you give the possibility to that person of saying no, or saying yes and then not delivering on their promise. And that's rejection, and we don't like it, and this could hurt us even more. So this is a real thing to take into account, but perhaps the solution is simply to ask someone whom you trust enough that you know that they will not make you feel rejected. Family, if you get along well with your family, is a great domain. You know, of course you cannot necessarily talk to your parents or to your family about everything, but you can talk to them plenty. And then friends, like the good friends, people that you can trust. It doesn't matter if they're like, not intellectual, or it doesn't matter if they are it doesn't even matter if they are as emotionally astute as you are, because if you're an INFJ, chances are you're not going to meet a lot of people in life that are as emotionally astute as you are. This doesn't mean that you cannot be helped by those people, and sometimes when you're going through a tough period, what you need is not necessarily someone who's the mirror image of you, but someone who has such a different perspective that they will refresh your perspective and make you aware of possibilities, including the possibilities of recovery, or of looking at the situation differently, that you wouldn't have thought by yourself, because this is not how you think. So imagine that you have certain blind spots. You might meet people who are not like you, and you might think, these people cannot help me because they're not like me. They're not going to understand me. First of all, no one will understand you the way you understand yourself. But some people, they will get a sense of what's going on, and they will give you advice that might not be the most expected or exactly the way that you would have dealt with it. But sometimes actually that works quite well. Sometimes the advice can be more pragmatic, it can be more practical. I'll give you an example. It's and you're going to laugh at this, but I'm not ashamed, I can tell you. So I went through this romantic pain, and as you might know, emotional shock. And I was trying to solve it intellectually. I was trying a lot of the time I was trying to revisit those memories, and that's fine. It's good to revisit memories and to face them. But I was essentially trying to solve it intellectually. And whenever I was asking people for support, for perspective, including in my family, because I do ask my family, my mom and my granny, who are S sensors, they would be the ones that would annoy me the most. I would ask them and then be ungrateful because they would give me advice that was very hands-on. My granny, of all people, said, dating app, go on a dating app, just change, meet someone, you'll doesn't matter if that turns into the love of your life. You'll think about something else, and sometimes that's the best thing, the best way to get over someone. Just think about someone else. Obviously treat them nicely, but allow yourself that. And I was like, Granny, I can't do that. I'm still grieving, and I can't just. I'm not like that. I can't just make myself join a dating app and like meet someone I don't really want to. I want to. Anyway, I still took up her advice begrudgingly. What happens? I had a match and I met someone a couple times. Someone nice. Now nothing's happened, and I'm not sure anything will happen. Nothing's happened, in a serious domain. God, I forgot about the other person. Like, I no longer think about that person. And I can tell you that helped massively, and that's not something that I would have done by myself. Miss Granny ESTJ suggested this. I took up the advice and that worked out. So I'm not saying that everyone should do this or apply this exactly like this, but don't be afraid to listen to kinds of advice that might not seem like they're to your typical territory. And finally, I would say, in order to be able to access those people, make sure that you get along with people and that you don't alienate people, and so that sometimes you can do things with people or for people that might not be exactly what you like or what is the most like you, but you do it anyway because it's important to cultivate relationships with your family and with good friends. Friends that you've known for a long time. Having known someone for a long time solidifies a relationship and increases the chance of it being reliable. So, if possible, try to get on with your family. Try to not be too demanding with your family, because in difficult moments, they will be the first who will always help you, even if they have no vested interest in it, and they will always be reliable and they will always have the time. And then next, your friends, longtime friends. Not quite the same as family, but almost the same as family. And sometimes they can help you for topics that you cannot approach with your family. Okay, let me know if that was helpful, and I'll talk to you soon, guys. Ciao.